I am Ms. Kindness Ramirez. I'm the CEO of Club Kindness. We are a cannabis inclusive education platform. And we like to do things like, publish magazines that remind people of civil rights and ethical consumerism, and throw impact-driven events that teach the community about all things health and wellness. Feminine Forward Talks is a mobile series. We are really seeking to transform the way women experience well-being. And today, our talks are specifically focused on different verticals within cannabis. We're starting with cultivation and then going into manufacturing, and we'll be talking with ancillary people. We've got retail. It's just going to be a great day. And my first guest today, I'm really excited to have her here. You're going to love her voice when you hear it. It's so beautiful. Judi Nelson is the CEO of Soul Spirit Farm, and this is her flower here. I want to let you ladies know that if you go to feminineforwardtalks.com, you will scroll down, and I want you to notice Q&A. And when she's talking, if you have any questions, you'll go ahead and type your questions right into the app that's on that page. And when she's done, I'll see those questions and I'll get them answered for you. All right, so all day long we'll be visiting feminineforwardtalks.com and typing in our questions while our speakers are talking. I'm going to let you talk more about yourself. I'm not going to read your bio.
Okay, works for me.
Judi Nelson.
Okay, I have this. Okay. Thank you all for being here. There's a lot going on, so I'm honored that you chose to come and spend your morning with me. Like Miss Kindness said, my name is Judi Nelson, and with my husband Walter, I own and operate Soul Spirit Farm and Retreats. We're a 10,000 square foot certified regenerative farm in Northern California in Trinity County. And we also in the summers operate a glamping bed and breakfast retreat center, just to invite people to come and see what life is like on a cannabis farm in the Emerald Triangle. And we've been on this piece of land since 2001, so farming and living on this piece of land for more than 20 years. And the biggest gift for me that I've received from farming, and as you can imagine, and as I hope that some of you have actually experienced, is that when you live in a place for that long, you develop a really deep connection with that land and with that place. And what that has given me, and what I am immensely grateful for every day, is that I have a true home, and that I have a sense of belonging to this place and being a part of this place that gives me strength and groundedness in the world. So I can, by developing that connection with the earth on my farm and in my place, when I leave there and come someplace like this that is like the polar opposite environment from my farm, it's like I can still feel that thrum of the earth, even here in Las Vegas, underneath all of this concrete and all of this frenetic activity that's going on the surface. And I can draw on that to come out and do my work in the world. And so that's also what we're trying to do by releasing our cannabis out into the world, right? It's my hope that each person that gets to consume that wherever they are, that they get this little infusion of connection and feeling of you also have a home. No matter what your actual living situation is, we all are at home on the earth. And so, just to bring a little bit of that in here today, I wanted to take a moment and ask everybody to just take a deep breath and close your eyes and, feel your butt in the seat and feel like, take a big old deep breath through your whole lungs, your whole rib cage, and then just like let everything sink down, right? Feel that connection with your seat. Feel how you can just be solid and feel your feet on the ground. And of course, we're, 60 stories up or something right now, but start to send out some little roots from your feet. And maybe here they kind of have to go out and down the balcony and down, work their way down. But, feel that connection as you okay, we got to the ground level. Now those roots are spreading out and looking for little fissures and cracks. That path of ease for them to crack through into the soil. And then once you've gotten into the soil, spread your roots out even more widely, to the sides, to the front and the back, and feel that stability that gives you, right? That big base of support that grounds you and connects you to the earth. And then just stay with that feeling, keep feeling your feet, keep feeling that connection. And I want you to stay in that feeling place to hear that you are a part of nature. And if you need any more proof of that, right, this physical body that you're carrying around that moves you around through the earth, it is made of earth, right? It grows that food. It becomes that food that you eat that makes your body. And so you are also connected, right? And this is really the message for me that cannabis wants to spread into the world, right? That we all are a part of one organism. There's a bazillion little soil microbes all around doing their thing under the surface. And then there's a bazillion of us all on the surface of the earth doing our thing, right? And we're all one unit, hurtling through space, right? And we forget that. A lot of us have completely forgotten that. And I think that is probably the biggest cause of stress and anxiety and depression in the world for humans, is because we've forgotten that actually everything we need is already provided for us, right, by the earth. And when we remember that, we make way better decisions, right? And so for me, my sort of spiritual evolutionary work is to help people remember that, right? And so through this co-creative process with the earth and with the cannabis plant, we're working to nurture that plant as it's growing and allow that purest expression of that plant to come through. Because with regenerative farming, you're nurturing the soil so that the soil can grow the plant. And we're not imposing so much of our own will onto what's happening there, right? It's we nurture the soil, we provide that nurturing environment for the plant. It gets to grow up without a lot of fertilizers and chemicals and things put upon it, because we're outside in the elements. We're also not trying to control every little element of its growth, right? So I'm not controlling its light cycle very much. I'm not controlling what it eats, right? I'm not even really controlling how much water we use, because it's sort of, it goes out there, it can be uptaken by the plants at any time. And so that dominating way of looking at this plant, there is much to go into there, right? It's a female plant, the part that we're trying to cultivate, and the part that is healing to us mostly, right? That flower is female. And like the dominating mindset of like, I'm gonna put it in a warehouse and I'm gonna tell it that it gets this much light, and my ego is going to make this into this thing and think that I'm in control of it. You know, what you're getting when you consume that flower is that cultivators, you're getting them. You're getting a lot of them and a lot of like their ego in that flower. And I personally believe that I am nowhere near as smart as this plant, right? And I want instead to just provide her an environment to grow and express herself, so that then when people consume that, they're getting that pure expression, and they're getting whatever that teaching or healing message from that plant that she wants to give them, right? And you know, right now, our climate, you know, it's like we're in a pretty dire circumstance right now. And 74% of adults in the US are either somewhat or extremely anxious about climate change. And so think about the mental health impacts of that, right? It's huge. And of course, for those of us in the business of selling cannabis, all of this stress and anxiety might actually be good for business, you know, because, you know, cannabis is amazing at helping with those symptoms. But imagine if the medicine that we're growing to heal those symptoms, that stress and anxiety and depression, like imagine if that medicine actually solved the problem that we're anxious about while it was being produced, which it can't. And this, for me, is the biggest thing that I want everybody in the cannabis industry, and especially people who consume cannabis, to understand, is that regenerative farming can reverse climate change. So, to say that another way, right, the Rodale Institute, who is like the publisher of Organic Gardening magazine, they're a very big supporter of organic and regenerative farming. They did modeling that showed that if all agriculture in the world was converted to regenerative farming methods, that we could sequester 111% of all the carbon emitted from all human activity every single year. So, if all the farming was regenerative, every single year, everything we emit from transportation, manufacturing, electricity generation, like all of this stuff that we're doing that emits carbon, just by changing how we farm, we would solve 100% of that and sequester 100% of that carbon emission every single year, and still have 11% left over to deal with the legacy load of carbon that's left in the atmosphere. Reversing climate change, okay? But a bunch of you are like, wow, that's surprising, I didn't know that. So they did this modeling in 2011. And yet only 4% of adults know anything about this.
We just increased that percentage.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yes! Yes, and so, you know, that's insane. Okay, 3/4 of the adults in the US are anxious about climate change. And I'll tell you, as the parent of a teenager, in young people, that number is way higher than that, right? So we know what to do to solve this problem, and yet we're not doing it, right? That's crazy, but it's also just another symptom of our disconnect, right? Because when you think that you have to like take care of everything yourself, when you think that you're this separate unit from everyone else and from the earth, you're like making decisions on sort of like, I need to get mine. I need to take care of myself. I need to just make sure I'm okay. And you make decisions based out of fear, based out of, just that need to like have stuff, right? And I just want to present that, ultimately the only thing that we are in control of is our own actions and our own decisions. And that's it. Like, we can't control really anything else, but what we can control is what we do every day. And so, if you work in retail, right? And especially if you're in charge of purchasing for a retail establishment in cannabis, right? You have a huge amount of power and a huge amount of ability to make a difference, because you can choose what people get presented with on those store shelves to buy, right? And right now, if you were to buy an eighth of sun-grown, just regular sun-grown, let's not even say regenerative sun-grown, any cannabis grown in the sun, you have just cut your personal carbon load for that eighth that you buy by 94%.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Okay, and then take it a step further and choose regenerative sun-grown, right? And so in cannabis, there's two certifications that you can look for. There is the Dragonfly Earth Medicine certification, or DEM Pure, and then there's also the Sun and Earth certification that you can look for, and those will tell you that those farms have been vetted. They've had inspections. What they've applied to their land, all of that stuff has been vetted by these organizations, and so you can feel confident that when you choose that, like that you're actually potentially even having a carbon negative impact with that purchase, right? And you can buy regeneratively farmed food, like look for that in the grocery store. I actually saw just the other day that Patagonia they have like certified regenerative clothing that you can buy. So it's really like, again, ultimately, we do speak with our dollars. Whether I wish that was not the case or not, that is power we have as individuals, is like, what do you spend your money on? What are you supporting, right? Are you supporting the further degradation of the earth with your hard-earned money? Or are you actually supporting its regeneration? Because we can solve this problem. We can create, an amazing, abundant planet for ourselves to live on and our kids. Like this thing that we're doing now is all out of disconnection, I believe. And so I would invite you, when you do consume cannabis, hopefully it's regeneratively farmed, but no matter what, she's strong, right? She can get that message through no matter what. But I just invite you to like feel what it does for you, right? Because ultimately we consume cannabis to feel good. Like, end of story, right? That's why we do it, right? To help ourselves feel better. So actually notice how that cannabis that you chose makes you feel, because, there's a real connection with wellness and what it does for you and how it was grown, right? And I want for everybody that like that vibration that they're taking in is actually that pure vibration of like what that mother cannabis plant wants for us and wants to teach us.
Mother something else.
The mother of everything, But, and ultimately, like, I am optimistic, and that's what I really want to, because I think that a lot of, you start talking about climate change and those things, and you kind of just want to like hide your head in the sand because it's overwhelming, and you're like, what could I do? I can't do anything. I'm just, forget it. I just am not even going to try. And then we've lost, right? And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows, it's like, we already know how to solve this, right? But there's money involved, there's governments, there's lobbyists, there's strong momentum in the other direction, right? And for cannabis, like the reason that to me, it's like this is happening at an amazing time, and if we do this right, cannabis can actually be the way that we show how to transition agriculture to regenerative farming. Because you know what's really hard is like turning an entrenched industry like ag and getting them to change their habits, right? You know, they are like satellite farming with a giant combine bigger than this high rise, okay? Like that is gonna take some effort and time to change that model. But the cool thing in cannabis is like we're building this right now from the ground up, right? We have a huge opportunity here to change the pathway, right? But it does take all of us like standing up for what's right, you know, not just taking that path of ease or the path of fear, right? And to like learn what we're being told, right? Let's make sure that when we are making purchases that we're supporting what we believe in, because at the end of the day, that's all we can do.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, man. Okay, so I love numbers.
Love that we can quantify how we could save the earth. And doing it with weed?
Win-win.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
We have an intimate space this morning, so I'm not going to look at the app. Y'all are just going to tell me your questions, because I know there are some burning. I see Sid back there like making up. I have some in my mind too, but first let's start with y'all. Questions for Judy.
I have a question. So on a consumer, for consumers basically, when they're going into their preferred dispensary, what are some like keywords? Because obviously you want to support regenerative, but I know that there's a difference between organic and regenerative. So how can you help consumers understand the difference, and like what keywords do you think that they should be using when going into dispensaries?
Absolutely. I mean, so in California, at least, we now have an organic certification for cannabis, and you know, unfortunately, like with many things, like organic has gotten very watered down, right, by big ag, you know, and right now, like an organic strawberry, you know, you could cover 100 acres of land with black plastic and pop your little strawberries up through that hole in the black plastic and call it organic, as long as you don't spray synthetic non-organic like fertilizers on it, right? And so it's kind of the difference between like buying organic produce at Costco versus buying it at your local farmer's market, right? Like that's kind of like the difference between, I mean, buy organic. If you find it, start with sun-grown. Just there. And you would be amazed at how many dispensaries like don't even have that at all, or think nobody wants it, which is crazy to me, but it's the reality, right? So like number one, just go in and start asking for sun-grown, because that would be huge alone, right? Like I said, 94% of the carbon load just goes away when it's grown outside, period. So start with sun-grown, and then secondly, you know, like ask for regenerative, craft, small farms. Those three things, like right now, you can regeneratively farm at scale. I encourage everybody to watch, there's 2 documentaries. One's called Kiss the Ground. Amazing. It's on Netflix. Like, please watch it. They just came out with the sequel to that they're doing like a national theater tour. It's called common ground. And, it really, you will understand how regenerative farming works, and you will understand how it will reverse climate change, right? But it is best done by small family farms. It really is. It's very difficult to take 30 acres of weed or anything and be able to stay on top of what needs, you have to pay a lot more attention when you're not just nuking all the bugs in the field, right? It takes more care and attention to grow regeneratively, right? Ultimately, too, unfortunately, there is a lot of healing of the land that has to happen. I just was this morning at breakfast, I met a farmer from Michigan, and he was like, yeah, we tried that regenerative farming thing for 3 years, but it just didn't work. And I was like, well, what was that farm before you started trying to do that?
Soil, right?
It takes time. If all of that life under the ground has been decimated by pesticides and salt fertilizers for decades, it's going to take some time to bring that back, So, again, where I'm from in the Emerald Triangle, and I know people outside of California, it's not as easy to find sun-grown because California is it's California. We grow 3/4 of all of the nuts and fruits are consumed in the U.S. in California for a reason, right? And this is actually my biggest argument for interstate commerce is the environmental one, right? Because you can ship 1/8 of sun-grown 16 million miles by train before you equal the carbon load of 1/8 of indoor. Right? So that's,
say that again?
I can say that again. You can ship 1/8 of sun-grown 16 million miles by train before it equals the carbon load of 1/8 grown indoors. Okay. And, developing all of these warehouses, all of this, in all of these different states, it's just because in a few years, hopefully, when we do have federal legalization, and just like all of our produce, people in Iowa can get their cannabis from California.
There won't be one any other weed after that.
Well, you said it, not me.